from VH1's Rock of Love. And this is Talk of Love, the new podcast. This isn't just reality, this is real life.
Hey everyone, it's Lacey motherfucking Sculls, and this is Talk of Love, episode 49. I am really excited about today's guest. We're going to have Darra on. You may know her as Like That from Flavor of Love Season 2 and from Charm School with Monique. First, I just want to take a second to talk about, so basically when we film these podcasts, we film them like a week, sometimes a week and a half early than when you guys see them. So this has, by the time you see this podcast, it will have been some time, but this actually just happened in real time where New York went on Instagram and she did an Instagram live with a transgender woman named Sage. And it was basically addressing everything that we've already talked about, where people were upset about some of the transphobic comments that were made on One More Chance. People were very dissatisfied and disappointed by New York's first Instagram video where she addressed this. But more recently, she went on Instagram and she basically brought a member of the transgender community on to really go point by point and help not only New York, but I feel like also New York's fans to help them understand why there was so much hurt and so much pain. And it was sad to see because even within that, on Instagram Live, people were still talking shit in the comments. And of course, that's just going to happen. I mean, there's going to be haters no matter what. But I feel like Sage did a really great job of really explaining to New York why this was a problem, how this kind of transphobic rhetoric can and oftentimes does lead to violence and why that is the reason it's such a big deal. But I thought New York did a really great job of really listening and putting her ego aside, which is really hard to do for all of us. You know, nobody wants to admit that they fucked up. Nobody wants to admit they hurt people's feelings. And it's easier just to be defensive. But I thought New York did a great job of putting her ego aside and really listening. And so for that, I do commend her because this is all a growing process. If we're willing to put our ego aside and listen and learn and grow, then we're allowed to make mistakes, you know, within reason. So I thought that was a cool thing to see, especially everything we've been talking about, and also the episode that I had with Believable and with Eden the Doll, the trans rights activist and model. So yeah, I thought that was really cool to see how that all played out. And, you know, one thing that I will say, I know there was people on New York's comments and also those of One More Chance that still clearly don't get it and we're being a little shitty about it. Here's how I can lay it out that is kind of easy. And this is something that you can use, not just having to do with this specific social issue, but you can use this for just about anything in life. Whenever there's a controversy, okay? And one group is saying, this is upsetting us. This is really bothering us. Think of that person, or think of that group rather, as your spouse. Think of them as like your wife or your husband. And if your wife or your husband comes at you and they're saying like, I didn't like the way that you were talking to me. You said this, you said that, you used these words, you used those words, and they're upset with you. Even if you don't think that they have a right to be upset, even if you think they're wrong and you want to defend yourself, you want to get defensive, all that, what are you going to do? If it's your spouse, you're going to go, well, am I just going to tell them their feelings are wrong? You know, or just, well, I know what my intentions were, so you're too sensitive, or you read too much into it, or you looked at it the wrong way. You, right? How long are we going to stay married if that's how we treat our significant other? We have to go, okay, well, I don't really get why they're upset. If that's what the case is, if you don't get it, you have to acknowledge that. Okay, I don't really get it, but if what they're saying was hurtful, I need to understand that. And even if I don't fully get it or maybe not fully agree with it, I have to go, if I want to treat my partner with respect, I need to go with the guidelines and the boundaries that they have set. And at the end of the day, that's how we have to treat each other. That's how we have to treat society. We have to treat each other like someone that we're living with, because ultimately we are all living together in one society. So we have to respect each other. If somebody is saying that something you're doing is demeaning to them or oppressing them or whatever, even if you don't agree, you have to hear them and listen if you want to treat them with respect. And ultimately, we're only going to grow as a society if we treat each other with respect. That's really what it boils down to. So that's my piece on that. I hope the conversation continues. I do also hope that that Chance, and I hope that the production company of One Mo Chance gets in on the conversation, because I will say that right now I'm kind of disappointed in Chance. I'm kind of disappointed in the production company because they've been staying silent about this. And especially the production company. Why is this all falling on New York's shoulders? Like, why is it all on New York? I get what she did was not cool, but she has come around. Why not the production company? Why not Chance? And why is nobody holding them accountable? I think there should be some accountability. And I think we got to go start having some discussions about what are we going to accept as drama in reality television shows from here on out, and what's going to be going too far. When we start stepping on or laughing at or mocking or making them the butt of the jokes as far as marginalized groups go, that's just one thing that we just can't have. We just can't have it. So that, I think, needs to be addressed at some point. But for now, I'm happy that the conversation is happening at all. I think it's a really positive thing all in all. So with that said, I am super excited about my next guest. I love her so much. She's such a great woman, such an intelligent, funny, in-your-face, bold woman. Gotta love her. Here is Darra, AKA Like Dat. What's up, Darra? How are you?
Great. Thank you for inviting me, babe. This is like fantastic. I'm happy to support.
Oh, I really, really appreciate that. That means so much to me. I've been doing this podcast for almost a year now. And one of the things that is cool for me, because I know how I feel about each of the characters on the show, and I know who like my favorites are, but it's really cool to get to see how all of the fans of these shows respond when I'm like, next week I'm bringing on this person or that person, and just getting to see like the excitement and the enthusiasm. And there have been some specific characters from the Of Love shows that have stood out as far as like the response that I've gotten. And you are certainly one of them. The response from fans was huge. Everybody was so, so excited that you were coming on the podcast.
I can't. Yeah, I don't believe you.
I mean it.
I'm surprised after all these years. I'm not even going to date us. I'm not. We going into almost, we passed a decade with both of these shows, And so it's kind of like, yeah, silent pause. There's still got fans out there?
I totally agree. I mean, I felt the same way. It's really amazing. And I think from what everybody says, and I totally get this, it's the whole nostalgia factor. It's like things were just so much easier back then. Everything's crazy now. And it's just kind of like the go-to shows that everybody like felt good about, But you specifically, the one thing that everybody was saying about you is a lot of people felt like you were kind of like just dragged through the ringer and not really treated with a level of respect that people thought that you deserved. And, it's interesting comparing times like certain things were never acceptable back then, but things were like more acceptable then than being like 2003, 2004, 2005, as compared to now. Like there's so much that wouldn't fly. We've had a couple of episodes about, the transphobic comments back then, which there was a lot of people are always accused of like, quote unquote, looking like a man, yep. And also the body shaming. It was pretty intense back then. And, you watch it from like through the goggles of today and you're like, holy shit, like I can't believe how bad that was.
Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah. I mean, so you live a life because, you live a life and you just laugh everything off. It doesn't matter because you think of yourself internally and externally as one way, and there's some ignorant people out there that think of you as another way, but it's not in your mind to think of it, right? So reflect back now, especially since I've gone through a serious transition. I like bubbled up to over 300 pounds. I lost 150 pounds,
That's awesome.
I'm even smaller than I was when I was on that show. It was like, and I don't have a problem telling people that I got bariatric surgery. I'm not going to spend this whole, show talking about that. But I don't have that there's that whole stigma about, going and having surgery to lose your weight because of that kind of shaming. They're like, oh, I must have been upset because I was big. No, honey, I was so sick I couldn't move. I was on a cane for 6 months.
Oh,
that's
wow.
Another story. It was really, it's a very serious transition. So, you know what I mean? It's a lot of work. It's not just going into the hospital and getting that thing. But back to the situations, like you don't think about it. Like you didn't think about it like then. Like you laugh the whole thing off. And even when we're watching the show afterwards, it was funny to me.
Oh,
it's
yeah?
not funny anymore. It's really not. Now when I look at it again, it's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought it was funny myself, and I was the one that was on the brunt of the joke. Ignorance is bliss sometimes, but then you reflect and you realize. Now we're in 2020, or 2021. We're in our 2020s.
Exactly.
We've got plus size models everywhere.
Yeah, it's great.
We have plus size lines everywhere. Lines of clothing. Yeah, I'm kind of mad I lost all the weight because some of these outfits I can't even fit in anymore. And I don't, it's really kind of funny. And we do see a lot of things like, where, I'm from New York, so I always participated in the Pride Parade, even when I wasn't a union actor. Now when the committee comes back, I'll be on the union committee as a new member, trying to help and do a lot of different things. And these were things I was always proud of, but there's a bigger presence now. So it's a bigger deal to participate in these kinds of programs where, we in New York, it went to the parade because it was a party when you were 19 years old. You know what I mean? You couldn't wait to get out. I went to Syracuse, so you couldn't wait to get out of Syracuse so that you could go, and you knew that June was coming. And if you even stayed home and took classes like over the summer, you was coming home for Pride.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gray, black, brown, yellow, and different. It was a celebration.
That's awesome.
It's always been the thing it's always been a part of my life. I've never been without anybody that was, transgender friends when I was 17. Didn't even know what that was.
That's cool. I dig that. That's awesome.
You see how much life is different now when you don't think about it. And now it's got such a huge space. It puts tears to my eyes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one thing that's really cool about New York, and this is a lot of the reason I've always loved New York and New Yorkers, is New York is like the textbook definition of melting pot. And it was really funny. You and I were talking for a few minutes before this, and it was really funny because I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I'm like little white girl in, suburban Dallas. And like, I think probably I went to public school. There was maybe like one or two Black kids at my school, and maybe like one or two Asians, and maybe one or two Hispanics, and that was it. And it was just all white people. But I think the reason that I was very open to it is because I was always in music and art. And so diversity was always celebrated in music and art. And I think that's what made it so I didn't get stuck in that, But then when I first started visiting New York, and I was like, oh my God, it's like every different kind of person you can possibly imagine lives here and coexists here. And that's beautiful. And that's so fucking cool. I always love that about New York. Yeah, that's awesome.
I used to be the butt of a joke in my family. Part of my family is Caribbean. Some of them
really?
are from Trinidad. Yeah, some of them are from Trinidad and some of them are from Jamaica, right? And even though my mother was born in Tennessee, they were like, I have never been to the Caribbean, not even on a cruise. And they were like, what are you doing? You don't even go see your cousins? You don't know any of us. I don't need to see my cousins. My cousins are in Queens.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, it is such a diverse melting pot here that you feel comfortable enough, even though I'm going to get there. Trust me, people, I'm coming. Don't worry, But like, it's like you don't feel like you have. There's so many New Yorkers I know now, and I've traveled all over the world. Just not too many places I haven't been to yet, and I'm going to get there. Right? Not bragging, but when you grow up here, it's like you feel like you don't have to leave because everybody's here. You can go. You know what? If you want to see the Eskimo, I know a place in the Bronx. The joke is not really true, but that's how you feel.
Right. I get.
And honey, there are Texans here too. They always have been and they always will be. And don't forget you got Neiman Marcus, and I got one right around the corner.
Nice. That's awesome. That's great. I love that. But you look fantastic. I'm so proud of you. Everybody's going to be shocked if they haven't seen you already. I was already seeing photos of you on Instagram and how much you've transformed. And I've known people who've gotten that kind of surgery. And I know it's not just like, I just get the surgery. And I'm like, and suddenly I look, like Pamela Anderson did in the 80s or whatever. And it's work. And it's like, it takes a toll on your body. And actually that was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you. You sort of answered it already, but you were talking about how you did this for health reasons. From what I personally have observed, sometimes I feel like sometimes the pendulum swings too far. Like if it's on its way to the right direction, if like over here is wrong and over here is right, sometimes we get too ahead of ourselves. I feel like sometimes people who are more voluptuous, more curvy, and then they lose a significant amount of weight. Oh, perfect example. Was it Adele, right? Didn't she just lose a whole bunch of weight? She kind of got a lot of hate, and people felt like she was running away from her larger self and basically saying that it's not okay to be that. We need to be thin, and is sort of regurgitating that same thing of like, we should be thin. That's just how it should be, just because, But have you gotten people that kind of give you shit for having lost the weight? And what are your feelings on that exactly?
I personally have not gotten any, like fan haters or people inboxing me about like losing this weight. In the beginning, when I was trying to work with a lot of my family and letting them know about the process, a lot of my family they did not understand this process at all. They just heard bariatric surgery and they were like, you're quitting.
Wow.
And I had to explain to them that I'm going to have to spend, 18 months or 8 to 10 months with a nutritionist, helping me understand the nature of what I'm about to go through and why I'm choosing to do this. Regardless of how many medications I had been on or that my blood pressure wasn't being regulated at all, or I had pernicious anemia for years that could not be fixed.
Wow.
These were like small things in the mindset of it. No, it's not cancer. No, it's not leukemia, but these are things that were wearing on my bones. And so that part of it was like, not really disheartening because I knew it came and they already were like, discussing it with me in all sorts of focus groups and things like that you're required to go to, and they honestly let you know, you have to start explaining to people what this really is. They don't understand. I had the best surgeon ever, and he said the same things. People are they're not very knowledgeable about what is happening. You know what I mean? Just think it's like that old school stomach stapling, that bypass that Al Roker got, and boom, next to you saw him go from a big balloon to like a little guy with a big head. And what happened to you? You shouldn't do that. There's so many other ways to do it. And I'm like, man, I've been on every diet under the sun. I don't need a diet. I don't eat. I was vegan for 2 years. I'm still pretty much a pescatarian.
Awesome.
I do like venison. I'm sorry.
It's okay. To each their own.
I don't eat a lot of carbohydrate. Never have. Can't really eat it anymore now, right? Was crazy about my exercise, which is why I ended up becoming an actor because I wanted more movement in my life, not sitting behind a desk. I was doing marketing for years, but I was always the runner in the marketing. And then I spent my college years as a waitress. If you've ever been a waitress, you're on your feet for 14 hours. Mm-hmm. So I've never been inactive. That was never the thing. It's just that, your body gets a certain age and things stop working right and you don't understand why. And then people start looking at you as if, you're making a personal choice not to do the real work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like that. It's not like that at all. Yeah. I have to tell you that a lot of my friends on Facebook and people that have seen me on Instagram, because while I was going through the process, I wasn't telling a lot of people that I was going through the process. They were seeing the changes within me themselves, and then, I'm still going to set. I had spent like a lot of those last couple of years. I was on Orange is the New Black. That's
and
awesome.
Everybody was seeing me get smaller. I love that production so much. I shout it out because they helped me through a lot of things that were going on in my life. That it was a great group of people to work with. I still miss them, but people started to see me and were saying what happened. And I was like, it was in between, I had my surgery and when, the last season, one season ended and then I got better and it was time for the next season for, shoots to start. And they were like, oh my God, girl, what happened? I was like, man, I had to go to the doctor. It was just too much.
Wow.
They were like, and I was like, yeah. And so the support has always been there,
That's awesome.
Because people that know on the inside know it's a lot of hard work. But for the haters, you got to just go and get yourself online and start reading about this. This is no joke. You know what I mean? It only gives you maybe 60, max 75 pounds. I lost 150. I went to the gym. I didn't put anything in my mouth I wasn't supposed to. And I burned the rest of this fat off of me. It was hard work. I was doing 10 and 12 and 15,000 steps a day. I was a steps junkie. I was like, oh, I'm missing 5,000 steps. Let me go back to the gym then. I can't lay in this bed all day. To this day, I don't sit down. After this, I have to drive to my date. You could keep that in or you can take it out. And I tell you one thing, he's going to want to sit down. And I'm like, no, we're going to the bar so I can stand up. No.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, there is something to be said. A lot of the people who watch this this podcast are in their 20s and 30s. And I will say, I am going to be, I'm 44 now. I'll be 45 in June. And the one thing that I've noticed is that it's like certain things that are just super easy, like waking up in the morning, like everything's stiff. I have to like stretch out. I mean, I was always very athletic myself when I was in my 20s and 30s. It's been particularly hard during COVID because we can't do the normal things that we normally do. But yeah, I mean, definitely as you get into your 40s, you've got to stay on it, because otherwise you're like, why do I feel like an 80-year-old woman right now? Like everything is so stiff, and you got to keep moving, So I think it's a really, really positive message. I love it. I love that you have had so much success with it and that you are feeling good. I mean, you look amazing. Your skin is like flawless. Your skin is gorgeous. So, you can always tell when you can tell in the skin, if people are taking care of themselves or not. So,
no, you got you got to do the work with the process. Otherwise, things don't start to look as well as they used to. People that like, you got to drink your water. You got to keep up with your fluids.
Water and sleep are huge. I drink a gallon of water a day. That's like my thing is I always have a bottle of water. I drink a gallon of water a day. I get minimum 8 hours of sleep every night. That is super, super important. And then the exercise, of course. Well, let's get into Flavor of Love, because I got lots of questions for you and I'm excited to dive into it. So I actually heard an interview that you did earlier in 2020. And you had the most interesting story of how you ended up auditioning for Flavor of Love and how you got on the show. Can you tell everybody about that?
Oh yes, man. I had some friends from college. I had one friend that was just a VH1 reality TV junkie. All right. And we would get together and have a brunch at her house. All of us were kind of all over spread out in New York. And one girl was in Seattle. Jump to the chase. We ended up with some newer friends, right? And one girl was a comedian, and we were just like watching the show, and we loved Flavor Flav. I mean, like, it was a year in college. I went as Flavor Flav for Halloween.
That's awesome.
I did. And she had the picture and showed it. Like, we had, like, how you go, how you just go to you go to the frat house Halloween party. I went as Flavor Flav. I had a fake clock she made me and everything. It was funny. So this same girl had a comedian friend of mine, right? I don't even know where this comedian girl is anymore. This is so crazy. And so we were like sitting there drinking mimosas and saying, we need to be on that show. We know more about Flavor Flav than these little 20-year-old girls that are on this show right now. Like, they were like, yeah. And the next Monday, after we all dispersed and went back to work, one of my friends was emailing me the call on Craigslist. And then my other friend that was the comedian was like, please do this for me. Come to this audition with me. I'll do it. I'm like, okay. So I dropped it in there and I said, okay, I went. And I was like, I didn't even fill out, how you fill out that form. I know you filled out that form. Or you fill out the email and you want to describe everything that you possibly could put in there to get the job. I was like, look. I told them, I don't even know. I think I was a number I'm not going to discuss. But, I said, because you have to give them an age. I said, okay, I'm this age. In marketing management. Own home. Call me. And my number. That was it.
Wow.
And they called her back. And so I went to this hotel in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan, and hadn't filled out any of that freaking 20-page, that 20-page thing we filled out. Lord have mercy. It's like, do I need a lawyer?
I know. Yeah.
And they interviewed me, and my girlfriend never showed up.
Oh, she didn't even show up.
She was the one that wanted me to do, wanted us to go and do the interviews together. Like, you do them separately, but she was like, and I was just doing it for support. So they give you the little video camera and get up in front of me, and they started asking me 10 questions. And I started telling them the worst stories. At the time, I owned a rooming house in Jersey City, a really nice brownstone, but I rented like 9 rooms, and I had like a 2.5 bedroom apartment on the main floor. Nice. It was huge, right? One of these dudes had some crazy girl that was notorious in the neighborhood for being crazy. I started telling them the story about how me and my little super decided that because this girl was ringing my doorbell, my man had just come back from France, and she's ringing the doorbell. I run to walk down the hall. I'm cooking the dinner. She wasn't there. Then the doorbell ringing again. I walked down the door. The dinner's on the stove. I'm cooking it. She wasn't there. By the third time, we both ran up in there, and she's just, oh my God. She was like, I'm looking for so-and-so. We were like, we already told you can't come in this house. All right. This is not an apartment. This is a rooming house. I tell people who's come up in here, this is my property, blah, blah, blah. Then she snuck me. She literally snuck me. And I was like, okay, no problem.
Oh my God.
I'm telling this story to producers thinking that this will keep me from ever being on this show. Somewhere somebody has the outtakes for the story that I told them in the way that I told to them. I'm like, I was like, I got food on the table, man. I got food on the stove. What are you doing? So she snuck me, right? And before I could get my fist to her face, here comes my super, who's a great woman to this day. And we whooped this chick's ass all the way down. And I'm like, I pay taxes on this. Don't come back here no more.
I fucking love it. I totally see why. Are you kidding? If I was in casting, I'd be like, get this bitch on the show now.
Yeah, I had no idea this is what they wanted. All right. And I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter. I just try to tell the worst story possible so that I can keep it moving and go back to my job. Next thing you know, those were the Bush years. I didn't have no job. VH1 was calling. I was like, I need a vacation. Boom.
Wow. That's really cool. It's so funny how things kind of like have a weird way of working themselves out. It's like if your friend hadn't been like, hey, let's do this. Let's get on the show. I mean, there's so many different factors that play into how you ended up on the show and how that all happened. And then not only did you get the one show, but you actually got the two shows, so it's so funny how things work out like that. So that's really cool. So I'm assuming you just said you had seen the previous season 1 of Flavor of Love. And so you kind of knew what you were getting yourself into. Flavor of Love season 2 was really funny. I really liked both season 1 and season 2 a lot, but it was really funny because like literally within 20 minutes, there was like crazy drama right out the gate with Safari and H-Town over the beds. And I'm like, I actually had Safari on here about a month ago. And it's just so funny because it was just like full 180 miles per hour drama, immediately. And so were you there for that? Like, were you a witness to it? And were you like, oh my God, what the hell have I just gotten myself into?
Exactly. First, it was the drinks. And I was like, this place has 3 bars. Mm-hmm. I'm about to be drunk. I'm about to be tipsy every day.
Yeah.
I started making these. I used to bartend too. I just went behind the bar when we took a break and started making these drinks for the ladies, right? Oh, well. Next thing you know, fights is breaking out. I mean, I didn't see a fight, but I was like, well, I wasn't behind the bar.
Right? Nothing to do with me as you're pouring your drinks. I love it.
I was making sorts of stuff. But, I love Safari, please. I don't care. She don't play. There's no mess with that. Like, you know what I mean? And she's deep inside, that's a good, honest, caring person that will always stand her ground. I mean, for her, I mean, like, she's straight Compton, but that's how New Yorkers are. They love who they know. They'll protect whoever they want to know and deal with whatever they do with everybody else. But don't get into my space wrong. You know what I mean?
I feel like the Flavor of Love season 2 girls were definitely more hardcore than the Flavor of Love 1 girls. The Flavor of Love 1 girls there were so many great characters. Like I love Goldie. I thought Shatar was even like really cute and funny and fun in her own way. Smiley, of course, is amazing. But like you girls, like, I mean, I loved all of you as well, but no messing around. When we had Safari, we had Bucky, we had Larissa. What was Larissa's? Oh yeah, Boots. I mean, you ladies like are not like, if you guys are all awesome and actually I love Bucky. I was actually on I Love Money 3, which it did not end up airing, but I was on that show with her. And if you're on her good side, all you ladies, if you're on your good side, you guys are awesome, fun, hilarious, great women, but like, don't fuck around with you guys either. You know what I mean? Compared to the Flavor of Love 1 girls.
Well, I mean, we're women now, and you spend a lot of years. You reflect back on how you're trying to build your career. I mean, I didn't realize it was going to be necessary for me to become an actor until I couldn't go back and find another job because damn near 10 million people were watching this show.
Yeah.
I mean, but But then when you look back and you think about, you understand why people are really trying to, protect themselves from like the inevitable in entertainment. It's just, you know it. I know it.
Yeah, 100%.
You never know what you're going to get out of this.
Yeah, definitely. That's very well stated. And I do actually want to get into, because you've done some really cool stuff. I'm going to say that for the end though, but you did some like really awesome stuff as far as acting, which I'm super proud of you for. But let's finish these, because I want to spend some time on that. So I want to also ask you we got to talk about something. The whole thing about her defecating on the floor. I felt so sorry for her, because she was such a great character as well. And I loved her. And then when that happened, of course, like everybody's in disbelief. I actually had Matt Odgers, one of the executive producers, on, and he was talking about that too. Everybody was just like in such disbelief. But then when you hear stories of like where people are going, well, actually what happened was you guys were doing the elimination, and then she had her own elimination. But she was asking producers because she used the restroom, and they told her no and to wait, and that's why that happened. Is that how you recall it?
Yeah. We actually were on that platform waiting to see who was going to be eliminated for almost 2 hours, just standing there. There was from what I understand, there was a situation with H-Town, and the ambulance had to come, and she needed to be attended to, And
what was the story with that?
I mean, that's all I know.
Oh, interesting.
I saw some flashing lights, and she needed to be attended to. And I know that they were really not trying to, there's a certain setting and a mode and a mood that you have to be in to be on that elimination platform. And I really think, as far as, producers and production are concerned, is that they didn't really want to alarm us to like, some kind of major emergency. So they were really just asking us to stay in that one area, because it would have been safer. It honestly would have been safer. Just not like there was going to be any kind of outburst or injury safe, but it just would have been like, kind of, more comfortable.
I see.
Not to really know what was going on at the time. And it took longer than they expected. But at the same time, she was asking if she could go to the bathroom, because I know I had to pee. Yeah, I know a lot of us had to go to the bathroom, and they kept telling her no. But at some point, darling, you just got to say, I'm going to the bathroom. And that's it.
Yeah, that's true. Like, what are you going to kick me off the show for going to the bathroom? Like, that's not sorry. Yeah.
Especially, we're not filming. We're just standing there. Go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah. I think everybody's initial reaction was like, everybody was horrified, and then everybody was shocked. But then at some point, you got to like feel sorry for her too. Like, that's how, but she handled it really well though. Like, she sort of just like didn't allow herself to at least look like she felt embarrassed, or at least that's how I saw it. I thought, that's really the best way that you can handle that, No,
I mean, she tried to hold as much as she could and ran upstairs. That's all what anybody would do. Like, she tried to hold on, but sometimes the body don't, when the body don't want to go.
That's true. Yeah.
Did her best. I mean, we were standing out there for like 2 hours. I give her due diligence. That's a long time to have to go.
Yeah.
Stomach is gurgling. Things are going to happen. And it's unfortunate that it happened while we were rolling. What can you do?
That poor girl. Well, the eliminations were brutal, because I mean, having to just stand, especially most of us were wearing heels, but just having to stand, there's something to be said for just standing. If you like, I can walk all day, but if you're just standing in one spot and you can't move, and then also then there's the nerves, and then there's the lights kind of beating down on you is kind of intensifies the whole entire thing. And then you're you're there forever. Everybody's quiet, and it's usually like too cold or too hot. And those eliminations were brutal, and they did last a really long time. When you watch them back on the TV shows, it looks like they go by relatively quickly, but we're there forever, and it's nerve-wracking as hell too.
Yep. Agreed. It's terrible. So then imagine adding like another hour to the fact that we still haven't even gone through the process of eliminations there. Of course, and you got, you're running.
Yeah. Man, poor girl. So one thing that was cool for you too is I felt like this probably was like boosted your confidence for being on the show. You actually won one of the first challenges. I think it was the blind speed dating. That's right. Yeah, you won. That was like one of the first challenges, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, if not the first one. Yeah, but you won that. And so that had to like help your confidence. Like, how were you feeling on the show as far as like being in a totally foreign, strange environment and having cameras on you 24 hours, which is totally new. And then like with all these people that you don't know. And then Flavor Flav, like, holy shit, it's Flavor Flav. Like that, there's an element to it of like being starstruck, you know? And so how are you feeling as far as your confidence goes on the show in the beginning of it?
I didn't know what to do. So I just did myself, I honestly didn't know what to do. I just tried to get to know everybody, to know where my boundaries were with everyone, and was, pulled out all of my mother's manners. And no, I didn't understand why there was a camera with a big light in my face all the time. And yes, I had hated having that mic up on me. The freaking thing was digging in my side. It was like, it's a wire, it's sweaty. These are things no problem now. But then it was a problem. I didn't know what to do, how to react, who was going to be doing what was going to happen with whatever, who was like a drama king. So a lot of times I kind of just sat back and let people do their thing and kind of giggled and laughed all the way through it. Tried to make friends with who I could make friends with to enjoy the time that I was there. But it was very something I was definitely not accustomed to, just definitely.
Yeah, it's wild, a very wild experience. And you guys actually had some really cool experiences within the experience of being on the show. I thought one of the cool things that you girls got to do was when you were doing the challenge where you had to clean the house, and then you girls found out like Warren G, like, oh my God, I was in high school when we were all listening to Warren G. Like that was so cool. And then 3-6 Mafia, DJ Quick, the Yin Yang Twins, like major stars in the music world are suddenly like, there they are. Like that had to been a freaking trip for you.
It was a trip to see Warren G.
Yeah, he's iconic.
It was a trip to see everybody, And was I starstruck? It was just nice to see people kind of hanging out, relaxed, and not performing. Like you could actually have a halfway decent conversation with somebody instead of like watching an interview. You could actually see, hear, and feel, and taste, and smell an individual and know who they are. As best as you can in a 15-minute or a 45-minute conversation. But you walk away with a different impression of someone when you really get to have to, get to talk to them. I spent a lot of time talking to Warren G, and that's like a down-to-earth brother to this day. Hi, Warren!
If Warren G is watching this podcast, I would be so happy.
But, it was really nice. It was like, that's a good dude. He was just calm, honest, relaxed, okay, really good, decent people.
That's so cool. There's nothing more awesome than when you finally get to meet these stars in the music world or in movies or whatever you're into, and you get to meet them, and it's like, holy shit, they're like, there they are in the flesh. And then it turns out they're like really, really nice too, and they're really down to earth too. Like that's the coolest. That's the coolest. That's awesome that you had that opportunity. And one thing that I also thought was really, really cool and really bold and brave of you is like totally something I would do as well. And I was like, you go, girl, was when you just decided just to do like I can't remember if you did like a dive or a cannonball, but you just like jumped with all your clothes on into the pool. Like, I'm like, that's such a cool move.
Yeah, I did that before. That's one of the signature things that we used to do, was just jump in the pool with our clothes on, because before you get pushed in, you're just going to jump in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, and I dove. I used to be a lifeguard, so it was very easy to dive. So I dove. Nobody thought that I would be able to dive. I was too big to be diving.
Jesus.
I dove.
Well, you showed them. I fucking love that though. I really, really do, because also at the end of the day, this is a competition as well. And, all these different girls in the house, everybody's trying to get the attention of either Warren G and the other guys that were there, or Flav. And so like, you got to be creative in making yourself stand out, which you did. But also I feel like doing something like diving in the pool with all your clothes on shows like how you don't care. Like you're just fun. It doesn't like I pushed Jess in on my season of Rock of Love. I remember as we were going underwater and your brain, you think really fast sometimes in these situations. And as I was underwater, I was thinking like, I wonder if she's gonna be pissed or whatever. I'm like, oh, whatever, she'll probably laugh. Cause it was half shitty, but half kind of like a prank. And when she came out and she was so furious, I kind of was getting like prissy vibes, in that moment. Like if I had been Jess and somebody shoved me in the pool with my clothes and hair on, I would have just laughed it off. But that didn't even happen with you. You took the power away from anybody even thinking like that. And you're just like, I'll just dive myself in, and that just shows that how like laid back you are, like life of the party.
I mean, that's the only way to describe it. Like I look back at my friends now, and I was always the one that was trying to make it fun because you go into place and we have so little time on this earth to enjoy ourselves. You ever go to that party and everybody's just standing in their corner, the music is low, they're drinking their drinks, and they're talking about work?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, come on, please.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about anything else but the job and who we hate and who is gossiping or what is the next big project? We have so little. Right now we're entertaining 5 days a weekers. I was one of those 5 days a weekers, and I was always the one that was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're not trying to put any rain on our sunshine. We got one night left. Let's make it happen. So if you saw that come out in that show, because there's all the things that I have always done, you just reminded me like, yeah, I'm still doing it today.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got to have fun with it. And you can't just be like, stuck in your like society's like standards of how to behave. And this is the volume that you should talk at. And this is how you should sit. And this is how you should dress. And these are the words you should use. And you're just like, fuck all that. It's boring.
Oh, exactly. We're already doing that. We're already doing that to get this. All right. So we should have that time. That's ours. We shouldn't even be worried about what is that. That's our time to be happy. It's all about being happy. You might as well. Like, if you're not laughing, then what the fuck you doing?
I love it. I think that's a great, great attitude. I love it. So one thing I also want to ask you about with Flavor of Love, I know that you said that you were a fan of his prior. I love Flavor of Love. I mean, I loved him in reality television, but I was such a big fan of like Public Enemy also. He's like just so great. And you put him in any kind of entertainment situation and he's like just amazing. But it would be weird to see him in like a romantic setting, but I did appreciate how sweet he was to all the girls. He did seem like genuinely sweet and gentlemanly. Did you develop any feelings for him at all? Or did you think that there was even a possibility of developing feelings? Or tell me your thoughts on that.
Girl, I was just so happy to be there around one of my idols. He had worked so hard all his life to get where he had gotten, I was just happy to put a smile on his face in any capacity. So, I mean, that young sir, that kind sir, that has been the brunt of every joke, but you don't knows how to play like damn near 10 instruments, is a lyrical genius. I was happy to be in that close proximity to someone that I had admired, not just because of their talent as a group, but because of what I already knew what it took to do what he and to become what he had become. So my feelings, I guess I got to say, were already there.
Yeah. That you worded that perfect.
I mean, I'm a lady. I'm not going to be in tears if you don't like me, but I already loved you, baby. So we get it or we don't. We just get another one that looks just like him. And you know how many other ones that look just like him are after me after that show? Lord have mercy. There's only one.
I love it. That's awesome. And I completely agree with you too, by the way. So let's talk about, did I ask you all the Flavor of Love questions? I think I did. Oh no, I almost forgot an important one. I want to talk to you about, you had a few, I wouldn't even call them confrontations necessarily because that was a little bit of a strong word, but for lack of better words, confrontations with Becky Buck Wild about her way of speaking. And I thought it was interesting because, watching that show when it first aired, watching it in real time, I would have thought that more girls, more of the girls in the house would have said to her like, hey, like, what's up with that way of speaking? Is this fake? Are you just trying to like suck up to Flav or whatever. So you're trying to speak a certain way or take on a certain persona or whatever. I was really surprised that more people didn't say anything to her. Besides, it was pretty much just you. And at some point, New York said something to her as well. So what made you decide to call that out? Like, what were your feelings about her and her whole way of speaking? What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the whole reality is that Becky was my friend. She was like the one person that was my friend the entire time. And I think just what ended up happening is that, like, you know, I might have asked her the wrong way and it just ended up in an argument. I just really wanted to know more about her because she was my friend. And, you know, sometimes you make mistakes. You ask the wrong question, you push the wrong button, and next thing you know, it's a freaking fight. And they got it. They got it. They caught us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, to this day, I never really had like a real problem with what she was doing. I mean, come on, I'm from New York. There's like a handful of white girls that talk black because they live in the Bronx. It can't be helped sometimes. People can't get out of the hood that they're in. And then, you know, it changes on them. So it was like not so much about the fakeness. I just wanted to know how, because she was just from another place, another area.
I think she's like from Rancho Cucamonga. Is that right? In California?
I didn't know they had those people like that in there. They're supposed to be but I don't know anything about it. So who knew? I didn't know. So I was kind of trying my best to pose the question, and it just did turn out like it just ended up to be a fight.
Well, you know, but looking back now, knowing what I know now, what I've learned culturally, it does make sense because we weren't really having those types of conversations back then. But since then, we've all learned the phrase cultural appropriation and like what does that mean exactly? When is that applicable? When is that not applicable? And then there was a really crazy case about Rachel Dolezal, who was the chapter president at the NAACP, and she was saying that she identified as a Black woman, and everybody thought that she was a Black woman. And then it was leaked. It was discovered that she actually was, in fact, a white woman. And people felt very, very betrayed and very, very hurt by that. And for me personally, the only marginalized group that I can speak for is women, because I'm a woman. But I have a lot of friends who are Black. I have a lot of friends who are gay. I have friends who are transgender. So when it comes to groups that I'm not a part of, but I still am listening and I want to learn, I want to educate myself, this is one that is curious to me that I don't fully understand, because I feel like in some contexts, people are accepting of, like, say, for example, Eminem, you know, but then they're not accepting of Rachel Dolezal. But then like Rachel's thing was, she was saying, well, this is, I identify as Black, which I guess in Black culture is not okay. And that's where it gets into the cultural appropriation. But then like a transgender person, if they identify as something that they were not born, if you identify as female, but you're born male, that is acceptable. So it's just interesting to me comparing and there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just always trying to learn and understand, and what makes one group, what makes each group feel respected, because that's the bottom line, you know? So can you like comment on all of that?
Wow.
I know it's a big one, right? I've always wanted to ask this, but I never had the context of like the reason to ask it. But Becky, that brings all this up.
No, it's really no problem. I don't have a problem, you know, attempting my best to answer how I feel about that situation. I think that we're not. One person is when a person is transgender, they're not trying to appropriate a male or female culture. Okay, because you know, a gender identity is not the same as a cultural identity.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
That's a great point. Yeah,
it's not, as far as I understand it. Someone out there is probably going to say, maybe you're wrong, Darra. If you're out there, maybe explain to me. But, you know, when you're identifying to a specific gender, it's not the same for me personally as identifying as a race or a culture.
Okay.
That transgender part of your question. Now, as far as Miss Rachel is concerned and the history of the NAACP, it really wasn't necessary for her to, as I understand it, you know, kind of fill out forms to imply that she was African American. You know what I mean? Leaving people with an understanding of that she was an African American, individual. She didn't have to do that in order to become president of the NAACP.
That's
or
a good
her
point.
chapter.
Mhm.
There have been national presidents of the NAACP that were not a person of color. I noted at least one time I do like a whole Black History Month in February, and one thing I did was about the Jewish influence in in the NAACP and with Black people.
Oh.
And there were at least 2 male Jewish national presidents of the NAACP in its early beginnings.
Oh.
So for me, knowing, yes, there were. And if you look at that history, it wasn't necessary for her not to be white and still participate and still be a president of her chapter, So, and the problem was, as I remember it, was that, she kind of got outed when they found out who her family was,
Mhm.
because she was allowing people to assume that she was a person of color.
Mhm.
You know? Now, if you want to identify yourself as a person of color, I mean, this is going to be a debate against whether you're going to culturally appropriate it. But like, as example of me trying to ask Becky, well, how were you raised? Where did you grow up? How did you do things? I like her, just are surrounded by another culture that is not theirs, and they're not appropriating it. Basically, appropriation, I feel, comes from when you are outside of that culture and that influence.
Oh, that's
trying to recreate it.
I see. Yeah,
but
that
if
makes
you
sense.
Are participating in that influence, like if I go from New York and I just go pick up a cowboy hat, and next thing I come back with a damn Texas accent and tell you everything you know about Dallas, and I only been there. I'm appropriating some shit.
That makes sense. That's worded very well. Yeah.
But if my daddy moved from Harlem to Dallas, all right, and I know the culture, I'm now doing the 2-step. I'm watching Tim McGraw. I mean, and all those cats that I'm not supposed to know their name on. My mother is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. God rest his soul. Charlie Pride was her favorite singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that's a great explanation. I think that's a really good explanation. So that's kind of when I was watching it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's the only one I got. I mean, it's just one. If you take it and then you're just kind of like doing some kind of copycat parody, then you just look like what they call a Sambo. Like, you're just kind of like in blackface. It's not okay. But if you're just sitting around here, raised, born, raised, bred in a culture that's there, you know what I mean? That you have been surrounded around all your life. I know people like that. They don't have really too many associations with anybody that's outside of what has been offered to them in Harlem or in, the Bronx, and they're Polish.
Yeah. I know that Native Americans get pretty upset by that too. Like, especially when it's like Halloween time and all the white girls are like, I'm a sexy Indian chief. It's like, first of all, we're not Indians. Second of all, that's cultural appropriation. So totally. That completely makes sense. And I think that's what like when I was watching your show, that's what I thought. That's where I thought you were going. I don't think I had the words cultural appropriation in my head at that time in 2000, whatever the show was filmed. But having an idea of what that was without the words, that's where I thought you were going with Becky. But what I thought was really sweet though, and really shows like the true woman that you are and really showed your heart, was even though clearly you struck a nerve with her and she got very emotional and she was very upset and thought that she was being accused of something that she, people were saying like, you're not really this thing, you're just pretending to be, and she didn't feel that way. And it upset her. And she's like, I'm not a fake. But when she got upset and she was kind of like just over it, like, fuck this, I'm going to go home. You're like, no, girl, like, don't go home. Like, stay, come on. And you really talked her into staying. And I thought that was really, really just showed your compassion.
Yeah. Don't let anybody take anything away from you just because they're talking about you.
Yeah.
I can ask a question and I can ask a question and you cannot like my question, but don't let that make you quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was it.
That was a great message.
I didn't want to see her get pushed out. If she wanted to go, it needed to be because she got eliminated, not because,
something you
not
said.
because of anything I said, not because of anybody that was saying anything behind her back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because Flav said it was time for her to go.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. But that's very
We're
adult
here.
of you.
Let's enjoy this. Let's do our things, and let's not get, because we're like a whole bunch of women, and it's not because we're a whole bunch of women, but like you just said a little while ago, this is a competition, and some people act like it's by any means necessary. They will try to manipulate you and cause you to devalue yourself. I'm sure that you had those same experiences, and you lasted long to know this, and I'm going to be here until someone tells me I got to leave. You're not trying to walk out the front door unless somebody is kicking me out with their shoe.
Right. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Speaking of being eliminated, when you finally were eliminated, I actually thought it was cool how you were eliminated because Flav basically said, like, I've got you in the homie category. You're in the friend zone, essentially. And I mean, there have been way worse reasons on why girls have been sent home by Flav. So I feel like that was pretty cool and pretty real. And in fact, I think that was the same reason he sent Goldie home as well. But how did you feel when you got eliminated? Were you bummed out, or were you like, that's okay, I had a good time here? Or what were your feelings about all of that?
I was like, damn, man, I don't want to go home yet.
Yeah.
I started to find my way in that place. I really started to feel comfortable with who was left there. I really started to like the girls that I was with. Didn't matter whether I win or lost. No, I just wanted to stay.
Yeah, because you I felt like you could have lasted longer too. Yeah, I feel like you kind of got sent home like about halfway through or so, I would say. Yeah. But what was great is then you had another opportunity when you were offered Charm School. How soon after you were done with Flavor of Love were you offered Charm School? How much time was that?
Oh God, it was a while. It was months.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. It was very close to like almost, I think it was like 8 months, if I'm not mistaken, 8 months later.
Oh yeah, that's a good span of time.
Yeah.
So
it was like a minute.
Okay. So had you gotten to see yourself in Flavor of Love before you went on Charm School? You got to watch yourself and everything. How did you feel watching yourself back? Did you feel like everything was happened the way that we saw it? Or do you feel like some things were changed in editing? Like, was there stuff that happened that they didn't show or any of that? Or was it like pretty real?
Well, I mean, of course there were things that were missing. You can't get everything in a 30-minute show. And you got to anticipate that, you got to, now I know, before I didn't, but while it was happening, it's like, it's hours and hours of footage that you're going to get in 30 minutes. And it's probably like now, 22 minutes with a whole stream of commercials?
Yeah.
Or like 15, 20,
Yeah.
Like, so that, with that being understood, you knew that they're not going to get everything, and they're going to get what they like.
Were you happy with how you were portrayed?
Oh, girl. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's reality television. It's never going to be like, they're never going to paint you in the most beautiful, perfect, wonderful light.
Exactly.
There's a few girls I think they kind of were, but few and far between. So
yeah. I have to say that the thing that I would have to say to answer that question is that anything that you saw that was horrible, I knew that camera was there and I did it anyway.
Awesome. That's so, yeah.
So I'm only responsible for what they caught. It's not like they were sneaking in the bathroom trying to catch me doing stuff. I knew it was there. I did it anyway. I did not care. If they got it and it was funny, it was funny. If it wasn't funny or gross, or they, used it, like, we signed disclosure.
Yeah.
I'm either going to make it work for me or I'm not going to make it work for me. Blessed be, it's working for me now.
That's fucking awesome. And that's the thing, is like, we're making a fun television show, and nobody wants to watch a bunch of girls that are like sitting around and getting along. They want to see the drama, within reason. So I totally feel you as far as that goes. So going on to Charm School, did you know that what were you told going into the show? Like, what were you expecting? Did you know it was going to be Monique, and did you know that it was going to be like, as far as the challenges and how the whole show was, the format of the show, did you know that's what it was going to be, or was it all kind of like a big surprise?
As I remember, when they first spoke with us, I don't believe that they had Monique as the host. But I know that right before we got back, or basically because I lived in New York, got to California, I knew we knew that it was going to be Monique as our host. And that's when I got like super excited because I love Monique.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I found out it was her, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be good because she doesn't play.
Yeah.
And she's like, she don't take no shit and she's kind of a classy lady. I knew the platform was going to be about farm school and etiquette. All right. I was like, it's going to be a piece of cake. My grandmother was the queen of freaking etiquette. There's not going to be a thing on this show not going to know about.
Yeah, you're very well spoken. You're very articulate. You're clearly intelligent and educated. And I think a lot of people felt this way. You kind of got the raw end of the deal in the way that you were sent home. It was just like you were just connected to another person, that person being Hottie Shatar, because you were connected to her in that one challenge where you girls were on the bottom four, and like that, it was kind of like guilt by association kind of thing. So that everybody kind of felt like you got the raw end of the deal. Like I feel like you could have been one of the ones to possibly have won the whole thing because, as you just said, you do have that knowledge under your belt already.
I mean, they didn't like that they made that dresser curtains out of my stuff and put feathers on my eyelashes, but it was like, the only way that we were going to win this fashion show with me being big was to make it a little bit comedic. And I agreed with that. We're going to go, if we're going to go down with the ship, man, we might as well be about going down with the ship. And I like that dress, by the way.
I was going to ask you about that next. Okay. Because like it seemed... No. I'm glad that was a very natural like transition into that because I was literally going to ask you that next. It was hard to tell how you felt because it seemed demeaning, like, oh, we're just going to put you in some curtains. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't say like the tablecloth, and it seemed demeaning, but at the same time, I could tell that you were trying to like rock it at the same, as well.
We couldn't use any of our clothes. We had to use all of the things that were in the house and nothing else was going to fit on me.
Man, so you're just like, fuck it, I'm going for it.
That's a natural choice. I mean, to make it whatever it was, you can say whatever you want to say about it. Oh, damn, they put the curtains on her. Well, shit, they probably used somebody else. They could have put the curtains on her and made her a Greek goddess too. But we got the curtains first. They could have put the curtains. I don't even remember who the other model was. They could have put curtains on her. But we stole those curtains immediately. We was like, snatch. Because what else are you going to make a dress out of if you need cloth?
That's true.
And then they put the spin on that one. Now the feathers.
Yeah, that was a bit much.
It was a bit much. But like I said, if we're going to go down with the ship, we might as well make it. I mean, I agree for it to make it comedic. I think a lot of my facial expressions, I will tell you this small secret. Okay. Because of that dress, I had to take the battery pack to the mic. All right. And totally tie it so tight around my thigh so it wouldn't fall down. That it was like digging into the side of my inner thigh. And I was literally like in tears, not because Monique was yelling at me.
Right.
Shit, can you hurry up and finish yelling at me? This freaking thing is digging me. It's killing me. Like hurting so bad. So that's like secret there. They got genuine tears out of me.
And that's what it was. That's so funny.
Screaming on me. I'm embarrassed. I'm this bad. I'm like, well, what the fuck else am I supposed to do, man? The only thing around here that fits me is a goddamn curtain.
I love your attitude about it. I love it. And yeah, I mean, you just had to you had to own it. You had to work with what you had. So it totally makes sense to me.
And I will add, just to reflect back on Becky Buck Wild, she was my teammate for that fashion show. And helped me out a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it seemed like that.
She was good to me for that challenge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. She was there. She was trying to do everything that she could. I see that Becky, as tough as she is, she definitely has that caring side to her that it very much comes across. Let's talk real quick about the situation where you guys had to do the challenge where you had to donate your clothes or whatever that you had. I know Layleen had to donate her ring. I mean, that was brutal. Asking anybody to give away all of their stuff or lose a challenge is a lot to ask. And it was interesting because you were just like, fuck this, basically, or at least I'm assuming that's what you were thinking. But then when you got back to the house, you felt sorry. From my perspective, it seemed like you genuinely felt sorry for Sapphire because she had gone through this whole emotional, roller coaster while she was there. And then she ended up giving away all her stuff. And then you offered your stuff to her. And I felt like she really took it the wrong way. So let's walk through some of that, starting with the challenge itself and what was behind your thoughts of like giving away all your stuff to this store.
Well, you guys better be very happy that my mother has dementia and probably will never see this podcast. I gave away a $250 suit and I could only hustle that guy for like, I think what was the tone of like $15 or $25.
Oh, brutal.
Right. We were trying to negotiate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was rough.
But I had a little mini Tommy Hilfiger purse that, again, I got like 20. I think I got maybe 10 or 15. I mean, go back to the tape and see I only paid $2.50 for that joker.
Oh, at that point, you're like, this. It doesn't even feel like you're doing anything good for the charity. And you're just hurting yourself and you're not really helping them. If it's like you're giving them something they think is worth $2, it's worth way more than that. So I would be like, who's benefiting from this? Because I don't feel like nobody is.
I mean, nobody. So, the whole premise for me in my mind was the art of negotiation. Like, come on, I'm trying to get as much money as possible for these things to donate this money to this charity. And I'm trying to, I know I'm not going to get the full price, but this guy is like bullballing me. Like, we're like in a pawn shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Come on, babe. Then for Sapphire to have all of her stuff gone, she ain't got nothing. And it's another one of those stories. I'm going to tell you, sometimes you go and you try to you got your best foot forward and you make the right, and you do it at the wrong time and it pinches the wrong nerve and people are emotional and they just assume that you were just trying to act like they don't have nothing. So here, take my stuff as if they're less of a person. But when you're just really trying to, help them out, but you don't know how you're going to get at people sometimes. And that's the art of making a mistake and accepting the mistake and making it real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's really big of you to say, because when I had Sapphire here, I said to her, I'm like, I got to be honest with you. I'm like, I didn't really understand your reaction to Darra, because when I watched it, I thought that you were just being compassionate. And I thought you were just being like really sweet. And I didn't understand her reaction to you at all. And so when I asked her on the podcast and she explained it to me and she's like, yeah, I just made me feel less than and whatever. And I know that wasn't what your intentions were at all, but that's how she took it. And so the way she explained it, and obviously you get it now too, but it really clarified like, oh, okay. But it just goes to show how stressful and emotional that environment of that show was, because it was easy to set somebody off, even if you don't even mean to.
I mean, it's hard. We're competing for a charity. I like the idea of charitable stuff. I belong to an organization where service is seriously important and charity is important. So that part of it didn't bother me. You know what I mean? But then it's the stress of you only have a little bit of time to try and get the maximum amount of money for your things.
Right.
You know what I mean? Then you only have a little bit of time to decide what of your things are you going to give away.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a little bit of time to figure out what of your things that you're going to give away are going to make the best value so that you can give money to this charitable organization, right? All those are big decisions to make in a small period of time where your things, they are yours. You worked hard for those things. We don't know where we all come from. We don't know how invested we are in our things. People can look at the show and assume that it's this material stuff, you'll get it again. No, we don't know if Sapphire was going to ever get that stuff again. I don't know where she lives. I never been to her. I mean,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And so when you see someone crying, it's because of the stress of what we're going through at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I felt like you were just like, how can I make this better? That's how I felt like you were coming at it. Yeah. So, yeah. Wow. Crazy. I mean, that was a rough challenge. And then let's talk about the thing that was just one of the crazier moments of the whole entire show, of course, was the missing picture frame incident where Laylene had her picture frame taken in, and it turns out we know who did it, but it was kind of like the blame was put on Safari, on Hottie, because she had already done these kind of pranks in the past. But this time she actually didn't do it. And so how much were you in the know as far as that situation?
I did not know anything about that. I didn't know what was going on with that thing until the end. Like, wow.
Yeah. And
like, go ahead.
And that sucks. And then because you got linked to her, because of that incident, but then you were linked to her on the challenge too, then that got you sent home, which once again didn't really seem like a justify reason to send you home. It seemed like you kind of got gypped. Did you feel that way too?
I mean, I totally felt like that I got gypped. I mean, if you look at my exit interview, I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
Meh. I don't want to go home yet. I have so much more to learn. I'm like so mechanical. I'm just like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm like the midway kid. I make it to halfway through the damn season, right? Just when I'm really getting good and I'm like, I'm getting my energy up and I'm ready to freaking finish this out. They're like, get the fuck out.
Yeah, that sucks. It's like such a kick in the shins too. It's so lame. Were you offered to do any other shows like I Love Money or anything else, or did you talk to the producers after that? Yeah, that's a bummer. I think you would have been, and of course we all know what happened. Everything fell apart at the end anyway. But anyway, Darra, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I got to let you go, but we're running out of time. But before I let you go, I wanted to read you a comment from somebody on YouTube that I thought was really cool that they said about you. Because a lot of people like to send in their questions and stuff, but for you, they had questions and comments, and this was my favorite. Somebody going by the handle JSG2021 says, Darra was one of the most genuine girls from Flavor of Love. I felt so bad the way they were body shaming her when in today's world, so many women would kill for her body type and shape. She was beautiful inside and out. She was very funny in her confessionals, and I praise her for the most for never backing down and for standing up for herself. It's an honor to hear from Darra. So I just thought that would make you feel good. And honestly, a lot of people were feeling that way about you coming on.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I appreciate that. I've never, I mean, to this day, I'm still working hard at everything I'm doing, and
yeah, quickly tell everybody. So I'm sorry to cut you off. Quickly tell everybody about the acting stuff, because you've done some amazing stuff, and tell people if they want to follow you online, find you, how can they do that?
Well, I'm on. You can kind of request me as a friend on Instagram as official like that. I'm on Twitter as like that. Twitter is better. You know what I mean? I am on Facebook, and you can find me as my name, Darra Boyd, if you want to do that. But Twitter and Instagram is where it's at these days. So go and find me there, like that, and official like that.
Awesome.
And I am a union actor, a proud card-carrying member, as you know how hard it is to get into this union.
Yeah, my husband, yep.
Yep, freaking almost 12, 13 years in this union now, hustling every damn show in New York City. Ended up with a little nice feature in Tower Heights, where Eddie Murphy and Ben Stiller and those guys.
Awesome.
Got myself a good, nice feature that was, as an inmate, I was naked. I was not naked. I was in the shower. I was out of the shower. I was the big girl then that was always showing up. Oh, there's Darra. You know what I'm saying? Ended up with a lot of friends on Orange is the New Black.
So
still trying to work. Still trying to do whatever is here.
That's so awesome. Well, congratulations on everything that you've done for yourself. It's amazing. I wish you continued success. I know that you're going to have it. And Darra, this is you're just such a wonderful woman. And it was such a pleasure getting to chat with you. So thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate it, man. Much success to your podcast, honey. I know you got to go. Anytime you need anything, just call, because I'm happy to support all of us from that day. And this is the one where, this is between you and me, Lacey. I'm glad that you called me, because I'm always looking to see us. We're the original.
Yeah, I agree.
The rest of these cats out here did not have to go went through, because we were round one of all of it in the beginning.
Yes.
You know, so to see us out making something out of this with ourselves after all of these years later, I'm about to support you in any capacity. That is who I am. We have to support each other.
100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. I completely agree. Well, Darra, take care. Let's stay in touch.
Definitely. You got my number. If you need me, beat me.
Likewise. Take care, girl. Bye.
Bye.
That was awesome. And I really like the idea of Darra's version of cultural appropriation, like putting on the cowboy hat, you know, because that is what I do when I'm not doing the podcast. I'm singing country western songs in my hat and my and my giant Texas belt buckle. No, I'm kidding. Actually, it was a great analogy, but I just laughed because I love Texans and I love Texas, but I'm so not the stereotypical Texan, and it's really funny to think about it like that from that perspective. Yeah, the whole Texas whole thing is kind of ridiculous, but kind of awesome at the same time. So gotta love that. But anyway, Darra was great. What a wonderful conversation. I love that woman so much. So appreciative that she came on the podcast. And as you guys know, I also appreciate you so much. And if you don't, I'm going to say it again. Thank you guys so much for continuing your support of the podcast. Especially, I want to thank the contributors, but all of you who watch, who listen, who like, I cannot thank you enough. And if you haven't done so already, please go on YouTube, hit the subscribe button on the Talk of Love YouTube channel, and make sure to hit the thumbs up. And make sure to also visit the talkoflove.net website. You can sign up to be a contributor. You can sign up to get the reaction videos. We got t-shirts for sale, all kinds of great stuff. So make sure to check that out as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, be safe, wear your masks, and don't threaten me with a good time. Bye, guys.